Hi everybody, welcome to Room and Board. My name's Chris George, and today we are talking about essential expansions. What are the most essential expansions to make your game actually good, other than the garbage fire of despair that you're currently playing and should feel horrible about? And this was a Patreon requested video that I pushed back against in my own mind for the longest time, because I have a major problem with the term essential expansion. If you could tell from that initial one-off joke at the beginning, I understand the term, I know where it comes from, and I also believe there are expansions out there that I personally prefer playing with a lot more than I do without. And yet, I also believe that no expansion is essential. And I actually think that the term essential expansion could potentially be slightly harmful to our hobby or to our own personal enjoyment. So I will get to my favorite expansions. That'll be the second half of this video. But first you have to sit through me spewing at you why you should never use the term essential expansion again, and how it's worse than gateway games, because the term essential expansion makes me want to get addicted to heroin. Trigger warning, I guess. And you have to sit through it, as long as you don't click to the bottom of the screen. No! Because I don't really think any expansion is essential. I think the term essential expansion implies that you cannot play the base game without this new addition. And I understand there are games that potentially fall into this category, but on principle, I hate this. Because if your game was truly unplayable without this expansion, why is it not included in the base game? Why are you putting out a subpar product that is only improved later on? Just do the playtesting, don't make people pay to be your playtesters, and then fix it later and make them pay for the complete game that you should have given in the first instance. And I know that isn't for all expansions. That isn't for most expansions. That is taking this thought to the extreme, for sure. But I think that's why I reject it. That's why I reject this notion. And I think in a sense, this idea sometimes does more harm than good when approaching things in our hobby. Because again, and it drives back to, I guess, the core principles of this channel, it promotes that FOMO in regular games, which is so ever-present in Kickstarters, which we'll talk about in a second. But I think one main culprit of this, actually, is Champions of Midgard. Now, Champions of Midgard, this is a pretty fun game. It's a worker placement game where you're rolling dice, and those dice are your workers, and they're Vikings, and you're going off into glorious battle, and some of your Vikings will die in glorious battle because they're murdered by monsters. This is a fun game. I got this game, a friend of mine got this for me for Christmas, actually, recently, because it was on my wish list. It's been on my wish list for a while. I don't often see it on the secondhand market, and that's usually what I put on my wish list, are the things that I don't often see that I can pick up for cheap from someone else. And so I am excited about this game, and I enjoy this game, and yet I also know that there is a Valhalla expansion that I do not own that supposedly makes this game so much better. In fact, it's so much better that you should never play the base game without it ever again. And hey, that might be fair. Again, there are these expansions that come into play that enhance the gameplay, and that's a great thing. Why not make a good game even better? And why play a good thing when you can play a great thing? I understand this concept. I keep on saying, I understand this concept, as if I know people are going to be shouting at me. I don't think you are. I think you're all a very insightful and intelligent audience. But when I got this game, I was very excited because it's something that I've wanted for a long time. And there was still this little voice in the back of my mind that said, oh, it's unplayable. This game that is rated incredibly high on Board Game Geek, what is it rated? Let me check. Probably in the 200s. My guess is going to be 292. 115! I was completely wrong. This is almost in the top 100 games of all time, this board game. And yet, there was still that part of me that said, oh, you don't have the Valhalla expansion. You likely will not enjoy this game, because there is clearly this major flaw that has been prevalent for so long, and they finally fixed it with this Valhalla expansion. For those of you who don't know, the Valhalla expansion basically gives you an extra thing when your workers die. So they're going to have to die. hey, it's the way of the world. I'm sorry to tell you this. Your workers are gonna have to die. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. But they have to die because they're going out and they're fighting monsters. And yeah, monsters are scary and not all of your troops are coming home. And this just got very dark and I'm gonna push you to the side now. So I don't have to consider all the Viking lives that were lost in pursuit of fame and glory. And so that's what the Valhalla expansion does. It gives you a bonus when your people die. I mean, the bonus that you already get is you're getting points because you've successfully completed a battle. But in this way, if you don't complete a battle and all your people die, at least you get something else. And that's a fun twist. And I'm probably gonna pick it up at some point. But I see this on so many essential expansion lists that it was really shocking to me to receive this game, which I was excited for and hadn't yet played, and to play it with the knowledge in the back of my head, oh, well, you know, you gotta play the base game first because you're a reviewer on YouTube and you need to be able to have that experience to share with people and share the differences. But you know, it's already been laid out. Valhalla is the way to go. And I disagree. Well, I haven't played Valhalla, so I might agree later on down the line. And I'm sure it's a boon to the gameplay. But there's a reason why this is 115. Well, that's what I said, right? Yeah. Why this is 115 of all time. Because it's a fun, solid worker placement. I think I like this game equal to my enjoyment of Lords of Waterdeep. And to have another game like that with a different theme, with some fun worker placement that I can introduce new people to that's not too intimidating, it's awesome to have, and I love having it in my collection. And I don't know if I need the Valhalla expansion because I haven't yet fully enjoyed and experienced the game. I've only played it a couple times since getting it. But that was just such an interesting realization to have, and really solidified my opinions about essential expansions. Because if a game is good, it should be good. There are ways to make it even better, and that's great, but that shouldn't detract from the main game. And I think saying this expansion is essential to the game experience almost detracts from it. Again, I know the intention behind it. I know I am potentially being unnecessarily pedantic with the terminology and the usage of that terminology, but I don't care. That's what this video is about. And I think a lot of this feeling stems from me looking at so many Kickstarters. I cover a lot of Kickstarters on this channel. I look at a lot of Kickstarter campaigns, and the way to make money on Kickstarter is twofold. You either deluxify your components, or you add in Kickstarter exclusive expansions. And these are expansions that they are trying to sell you before you've had a chance to play the game. These are expansions that often get tested less because less people are getting them. These are expansions that sometimes really enhance the gameplay and most often are completely useless and you don't even need to get in the slightest. I should do a whole other video about going all in on Kickstarter and that can of worms. But the concept that these expansions are consistently being sold to you and consistently pitched as being integral to the game experience. And I think a lot of that also has to do with the feeling, and this is a legitimate feeling, that in order to make the base price of a Kickstarter pledge or a base price of a game more affordable so that more people can have access to it, you need to slash bits out of the game and make it streamlined so you don't have as many components to worry about. You don't have as large a box to deal with. And so you get rid of those components. You get rid of the stuff that, oh man, the designer wished they could have included in the base game, but it just made the price too much. And so you can get it, and the designer really wanted it in the base game. And if you don't get it, just know that the designer, oh, he's so upset. He wants you to have those extra toys. Yeah, but you can get the base game. And I think it's that sort of mentality that pushes us towards purchasing everything all the time. And I believe it starts with the concept of essential expansions. I guess I'm a purist. I want the base game to be the game. And what I personally enjoy from expansions are more of that game, more of the game that I love. Stuff that adds in additional variability, not necessarily fixing game mechanics that should have been fixed in the original game. So let's talk about the types of expansions that often get listed in these sorts of lists. The number one that jumps to my head, the Viticulture expansion for Tuscany. And I have never played Viticulture. I have only played Viticulture with the Tuscany expansion because I played it with my friends who are heavier gamers, and they know that I'm a heavier gamer, and they knew that teaching me the sort of additional concepts that came in with the Tuscany expansion wouldn't be overwhelming for me, and I would enjoy it. And absolutely, I did enjoy it. I thought it was an awesome game. It made me want to go out and get Viticulture and Tuscany because I enjoyed the experience so much. The difference between these two games, they're almost separate games. I mean, I say this having not played the first one, but I had my friend walk me through the differences. You basically get double the things to do. In Viticulture, as I understand it, you get a spring and a fall phase to place your workers. And then the summer and the winter phases are kind of automated by cards or something. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm close enough, I feel, that I don't have to delete this channel out of shame quite yet. I mean, yeah, I should have done that a long time ago, let's be real. You've seen the sorts of stuff that happens on this channel. We all saw the April Fool's Madness video. But with Tuscany, you get additional placements for your workers in the summer and the winter phase. So it's a whole new board. You've got this other little map that you're vying for control over. And it was so much fun. I lost abysmally. I came in last when we played it, but I had such a good time, and it really made me enjoy Viticulture and see the possibility and see the excitement that was there. And I will admit that playing Viticulture with the Tuscany, I thought, why would you ever play just the base game? How could you ever possibly imagine playing that disgusting piece of garbage when you have this beautiful way to play it? And I think that's just absurd, because the base Viticulture, I was having this conversation with another friend, and they pull it out all the time without the Tuscany expansion because it's a little bit simpler, it's a little bit easier to table, and it gives a different experience. And so it's sort of my snobbery when playing this one game that I really enjoyed and really loved and wanted to play it only in that way. I now am discounting just getting Viticulture because I had such a good time with the Tuscany experience, but I imagine it's still a really good game without it. I imagine it channels the same experience, and Tuscany just gives you more depth of choice. So that's one that's always mentioned. And I understand why it's always mentioned. I've experienced why it's always mentioned. And I'd like to just get the base game and see if I'm okay with it. But I think that one comes down to a matter of taste and a matter of how much complexity do you actually want to add to this same system. So it might be essential if you are and I hate that I just said it, I know. If you are a really meaty, crunchy gamer, it might feel essential, but I think it's off the backs giving you more of the same thing that you like in the first one, just giving you a longer experience or more choices or more opportunities to develop your wine and that sort of stuff. And I think that's why I like it, because it falls into that category of giving you more of what you like, maybe, rather than changing the game. I might be completely wrong here. You'll have to let me know. But another one that usually gets brought up, and this one particularly makes me mad, is the Terraforming Mars Prelude expansion. And in Terraforming Mars, you start out with nothing. You start out with one little thing according to your corporation in terms of all your income tracks. If you've never played Terraforming Mars, basically you're going to have these 6 different income tracks that will give you various resources, and then you'll use those resources to develop your engine and build things on Mars. And it's long. And I always play with everybody just starts with 1 production of each resource instead of 0 production. And they suggest it as a variant in the rulebook, because I think that's just, it makes for a shorter game. It lets you ramp up a lot quicker, and you get to do more things earlier, so then it's more fun earlier. But the Prelude expansion, it just adds in these extra cards that do that exact thing. And I think it is a great expansion. I think it is a horrible value expansion because it's just a bunch of cards. And I think this is the type of expansion that makes me mad because I feel like it should have been included in the base game because it does add so much more to the experience. So I don't own the Prelude expansion, and I won't purchase it out of principle because I think it is so expensive for what you get. It's like 20 bucks for these little cards. And it's fine, completely fine to not play with it, but it does help ramp up the game a little bit more and get to the fun part a little bit sooner. But I think this represents an example, it being a great success, people enjoying it a lot, possibly the designer realizing that this is a better way to play. But I hate that it is an expansion, because when that realization happened, I don't know, I feel like they should have just included it in future printings, in different editions, like Wingspan does with the Swift Start promo pack. They're literally just throwing it in there to help people learn. Just look at how well it worked for Mandy Patinkin.
It's just nonsense.
I freaking love that video. And so I do think that the Prelude expansion elevates the game and makes it a little bit more interesting and a little bit more variable. And yet I will never purchase it for its full price, because I think it should have been included in the base game as an option, as an optional variant, these small little cards. And I think it's a horrible value. Although I feel that way with Terraforming Mars in general, that it's a very great game and I really enjoy it. And yet it is only so expensive because people want to buy it. The amount of actual content and stuff that you get, I don't know. But anyway, that's a tangent for another time in this video that I thought was going to be maybe 10 minutes long, and now we're going on and on. So that's one that gets mentioned. And even as I say it, I think, yeah, it feels like I want that to be included in the main game. It should fall under that category of essential. And yet, I don't believe it's essential because I don't need it. Every time I play Terraforming Mars, I have the same enjoyment, probably, of just starting with a few extra resources. If you really want to get crazy about it, give people a choice of which ones to move up and which ones to move down. There's your room and board house variant. Anyway, those are the three that I think are brought up a lot, at least from what I've heard. Champions of Midgard, Viticulture, and Terraforming Mars. Literally just talked about it and immediately forgot. That's how forgettable the Prelude expansion really is. There's a drug called Ludes. I think it rhymes with Prelude. Anyway, pretend I'd made a joke about taking too many of those, and that's why I couldn't. And it rhymed, and oh! Remember how we laughed. Yeah. Now we've reached the portion of the event where I'll tell you what my favorite expansions are, and these will have a common theme. They basically give you more of what you already enjoy. And if you take them out, the base game is still completely fine without it, but you now just have more of it. That's what I look for. So this one isn't necessarily my favorite expansion, but anything for Ticket to Ride, even the 1910 ticket cards, because it's a cheap way to add in 35 or 37 more destination tickets to give you more variability of the routes. That's all you need. Oh, I like Ticket to Rides, but we're always seeing the same destinations. Boom! Have a whole bunch more destinations. So I like stuff like that. Or you could buy a new map to experience with Ticket to Ride. I really enjoy things along those lines. I don't know if those would fall into my favorite expansions, so, well, I do know they wouldn't, because I'm not including them in this top 5 list or whatever I'm about to say. But that's what I like. And I think when looking for an expansion, it's important to clarify what it is you enjoy about the expansion and how much value it does add. I find, and perhaps this is the reason why I like these sorts of expansions, anything that adds in additional variability, those are going to be the best value. Those are going to give you the best bang for your buck. Because of this additional variability, you now have a whole bunch more combinations of how things will interact with each other than you had before. And that's fun, because that gives you the same game with just more. That's what I immediately want in Everdell, because I think, oh, I love all these cards and what they do. I just want an expansion that gives me more cards so that I can have more combinations and searching through the deck desperately to find those people and break the balance of the game. And when you add in those different combinations and possibilities, then you get more life out of a game that could have potentially been growing a bit stale. That's what I look for in an expansion. I think expansions should be purchased when you are done with the main game, when you've played the main game so much that it needs to be enriched in a certain way, rather than needing it to provide the mechanics change that makes the game bearable to play in the first place. So here we go. This has been a long time coming, but hopefully an interesting or enjoyable thing to listen to. But now we hit the meat of the event. Here's my top 5 current favorite expansions that I've played. I don't own all of them. I don't own one of them because I'm waiting to get it on the secondhand market for cheaper. I do own my number 5, and that is an expansion for Wingspan, the Oceana expansion. And this is specifically the Oceana expansion and not the European expansion. And I'll probably do a full Wingspan review at some point, because in order to get Stonemaier games, you have to have reviewed previous Stonemaier games, which is legit. So I'll need to review some Stonemaier games on the channel so that they can then send me some other games to review. But the Oceana expansion is a fantastic expansion because not only does it add in more birds, but it adds in a new resource, which is the nectar resource, which functions as a wild resource. And then it gives you a new board, which lets you do things with this new nectar resource. But it also is scaled a little bit differently. And I'm sure it's scaled a bit because of the nectar, but I think it's also scaled based upon the base game being a little bit harder to ramp up. I find with the Oceana board, it's a great expansion to get if you enjoy Wingspan, and it is something that I will always play with, and I will consistently introduce new people to the game with as well, because it is so easy to implement. The board itself is a little bit more forgiving. When you add additional birds, your powers get better and better, but in this one they get better a little bit sooner, and then that trickles over the course of time. So I find you want to diversify your birds a little bit more in this instance, and then also having access to a random resource that you can spend on anything is super helpful, fun to play with, and doesn't break the balance of the game too much. I mean, everybody's going to grab the nectar as much as they can, but there are still ways to use your other resources very effectively as well. So I really like the Wingspan Oceana expansion. If you are a fan of Wingspan and you have played it a bunch, I recommend getting this one first over the other expansions, the European or whatever one is coming out very soon in the nesting box. I really like this as an expansion, and I will not play without it if I'm pulling out my own copy, and that's also just because I've bundled everything into one box and there wasn't enough room for both sets of boards, so I'm picking the boards that I like better. That's a pretty easy choice. So that's number 5, Wingspan Oceana expansion. Number 4 is the expansion for Lords of Waterdeep, Scoundrels of Skullport, which I don't own. And I've owned Lords of Waterdeep for years. Lords of Waterdeep was one of the first board games that I purchased getting into the board gaming. And I never feel the need to purchase Scoundrels of Skullport. And yet, whenever I play it, I think, oh man, this is a really fun addition. It adds another couple little boards on the side where you can get more things, and it adds in a new resource, corruption, which is bad. It'll give you negative points, but you can go to spaces that give you lots of stuff and the negative points. So again, it's kind of like the Prelude expansion almost, in that you're able to do more things more quickly. I still haven't purchased it because I'm fine playing Lords of Waterdeep without it. Apparently, because I haven't run out to buy it, but it is one that I'm always searching for on the secondhand market to see if I can get it for. I was trying to get things for 50% off retail prices, as though I'm a board game retail store. An easier thing to do would be to set up my own retail store and then be able to get everything 50% off, but then I would literally be drowning in board games, and I'm not exaggerating. They would be packed so much in this room that they would have turned into liquid and would be suffocating me. Therefore, literally drowning me. But yeah, that's Scoundrels of Skullport. I think it's an awesome expansion. Even just thinking about it makes me want to go get it. Now, my number 3 favorite expansion, again, continuing on in this theme of expansions that just add to the variability, is the One Night Ultimate Werewolf Daybreak expansion. So One Night Werewolf, it's an awesome party game. It's Werewolf, but in 5-minute rounds, so that somebody doesn't get eliminated immediately and then has to sit watching everybody else have fun in silence for 2 hours. Which, that's the worst part about Werewolf. It's just awful. But the Daybreak expansion just adds in a bunch more roles. You get things like the Witch, who can look at a card in the middle and then turn somebody else into it. I guess I should explain the premise of the game if you've never played it. I'm sure you have. Basically, you all get a role. People are the villagers or the werewolf. Everybody closes their eyes and then they do something in the night so things can get swapped, etc. So this just gives more things being swapped. I also really like the village idiot who's in this, who basically pushes everyone's card one space to the right or the left. You got to do it quickly while everybody's eyes are closed, and you got to do it quietly so nobody knows who you are. But in theory, it's funny. And then the other one that I think is really funny in this one is the curator. And the curator gets to assign a random token to someone, and that random token can literally just turn you into a werewolf or a villager or something else. And you get to look at the token, and then you're that role. Or sometimes you don't get to look at the token. No, you do get to look at the token, because there's one or two tokens. One's called the Shroud of Silence, and the other's called the, I don't know, something else. But it makes you turn around, literally just turn your seat around, or just not be able to talk. And this is a funny thing that you can bluff if you were given a wolf. You just go, I'm silent, and then, but it also makes for just sometimes a horrible experience. I was so excited to get these tokens and have them be put on me, and it happened, and then I just had to turn my chair around and nobody would listen to me, and so I basically just didn't get to play that round because nobody was listening to me because I couldn't interact with anyone. But I still think it's a very fun expansion, and to have that choice of variability to swap those roles around, yeah, it's a good time. So that's why it's my number 3 favorite expansion that I enjoy. Now, my number 2 favorite expansion is, of course, the Rising Sun Dynasty expansion. For those of you who may be unfamiliar, I love Rising Sun a whole lot. This expansion was the reason I ended up going all in for Ankh, which had not as great results with me personally, but because I love the variable player powers in Rising Sun. And that's what all that this expansion does. It gives you 2 more clans. It will let you play up to 6 players if you don't have 6 clans, because you might have another clan because you got it on Kickstarter. But the abilities on these clans are just so fun. I don't know if I ranked the Rising Sun clans or not in a video. I think I had designs to do that. Maybe I will, but spoiler alert, Sun Clan is number 1. If I haven't done that. I love the Sun Clan so much, and you get that in this Dynasty expansion. But this one is expensive. This is not what I would call a good value expansion. I don't think so at all. It's like $50. Rising Sun's around $100, and this is usually around $50. So objectively, you're not getting 50% more content, 50% more variability. But the powers are a lot of fun. I particularly love Rising Sun, so I play it a lot. So having that additional variability helps to bolster everything up. But if you're just getting the game, if you're just getting Rising Sun, you don't need this whatsoever. You can play the base game and see if you enjoy it enough to want these additional clans and their special abilities. And you can't really proxy them. You could, actually, because you could just say, okay, I'm going to play as the Sun Clan and use somebody else's figures. But the thing about these clans is that they have their own set of monsters that only they get to purchase, and they can't purchase any of the original monsters. And these extra monsters are very powerful. So you'd have to find proxies for those extra monsters as well. It's doable. Again, it's not something that you need right away. So that's why it's one of my favorite expansions, but it's a bad value, objectively. He's hungry, aren't you? You gonna sit nice here? So that's my number 2. So that's my, that's my number. But yeah, that's my number 2. Horrible value, not essential, and yet I still love it. And if you love Rising Sun, well then I think you should get it, because it gives you more of what you love. And speaking of giving you more of what you love, my number 1 favorite expansion is for Unfair. The alien B-movie, Western, the other one, whatever it is. Dinosaur, that's it. Unfair is a game where you're building a theme park. You take the number of players, and you take a number of different decks, and you mash them all together. And then you try to complete blueprints, like tickets and Ticket to Ride. You need to have certain things in your theme park. If you do, you get points for it. If you don't, you lose points. That's it. You can also screw over other people by playing events on them, or use those events to benefit you instead. It's a game that is potentially very unfair and will be on the top 10 games to play when you want to break up with someone. When you need that last push to just get you over the edge, to really get you mad at each other and realize that it hasn't been working this whole time, Darla. And I'm sorry that you had to find out this way. We're done. But again, I think I'm putting this as my number one, not because any one of those particular extra decks is integral to the unfair experience, but because it embodies what I love about expansions and what I want in an expansion that I've been talking about ad nauseum for this entire video. It gives you more of what you like. This is a game that I really like. I like playing this a lot, even though, you know, sometimes I'm not allowed to use the mean versions of the cards, and I have to use the good versions of the cards, and I think that, you know, takes out a lot of the enjoyment of the game because I know what you're going for, and so therefore I have to destroy it if I want to win. But other than that, this is a game I really, really like. That's why as soon as there were more decks for this game, because I enjoy this game so much, I said, yeah, I want to buy it. Not because you need it, but because you want it. And because it'll make you play it more, and it'll give you those different combinations. And I don't know why I tipped it on its side. Oh yeah, because it was opening up, because it's all cards. I gotta hold it closed like it's Pandora's box. It's an okay price point for these expansions, I find. Better than Terraforming Mars Prelude. Ah, it makes me so mad. But it gives me more of what I like, with interesting twists, and that's also a solid expansion because I enjoy all of those decks. I'm actually fairly skeptical about the Kaiju deck that's coming in the latest expansion. I think that one may not be as enjoyable for me. It might add a little bit too much when all I want is just, I want the same thing and I just want more of it. That's why I order pizza every day for dinner. The same one, the same thing over and over. Just give me more. Give me more. Give me. So yeah, that's it. There's not too much more to say about it other than it's great if you like unfair. And if you don't, well, it's not going to change your mind. And so perhaps that's not as useful as the other terminology of essential expansions. It's saying, if you didn't like that game, this will make you like it. This will let you give it a second chance. You'll see what all the hype is about. But at the same time, we all don't like certain games. We all have different tastes. And I don't know about you, but when I've determined that I don't like a game or I'm not a huge fan of it, well, I have to play it over and over again so that I can confirm that, so that I can make a review about it and make sure that I am providing you all with important information. But if I didn't have to do that, or once that's done, I'm not going to play it again, because there are too many games out there that are good, and there are too many games out there that are great, and there are too many games out there that you love to worry about trying to fix the ones that you don't. I was looking at a lot of people's essential expansions lists before doing this video to get a sense of what was out there, and I think it was Brothers Murph who put the Backstage expansion for Shakespeare on their list. And I've heard good things. My friend owns Shakespeare, I've played Shakespeare, and I think it's okay. They really enjoy it. My friends do. Well, Brother Murph do as well. But my friends really enjoy Shakespeare. I was just sort of okay on it. And so something like that, where it's like, hey, this is the essential expansion. This is the best expansion for Shakespeare. It will elevate your experience beyond measure. I'll try it because my friends own it and they may want to play Shakespeare. That's fine. But I'm not going to try it because I've already decided that I am so-so on Shakespeare. It was okay. It was fun, but it didn't blow my mind. And I'd rather play games that do blow my mind. And I'd rather add things to games and spend the money on those games if I enjoy them already, rather than needing to spend additional money to make me enjoy the game in the first place. That's it. That's my stance. That's my official Ruined Board stance. That's what we're going with. That's the end of the video. Go away. I should just leave it there. That would have been good. But anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought about what I said, how you feel about essential expansions, what expansions do you love, or that you do feel are essential to the game, and that I should just throw my whole definition out the window, and that essential expansions are here to stay, and they are because you fix the games with them. And yeah, that's great. Honestly, that's great. Let me know. I'm curious. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. My name's Chris George, and I don't have a catchphrase, but I've said it once, and I've said it again. Go away.